Now, let's talk about genetic disorders. A genetic disorders is a disease that is caused by an abnormality in an individual DNA. Abnormalities can be as small as a single mutation in just one gene, or they can involve the additional or subtraction of entire chromosomes. What is a gene? To understand how genes work, let's review some biology basics. The most living organisms are made up of the cell that contain a substance called deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA. DNA contains four chemicals: the adenine, thymine, cytosine, and the guanine, are called ATC and G for short, that are strung in patterns on extremely thin, coiled strands in the cell. How thin? Cells are tiny, invisible to the naked eye, and each cell your body contains about 6 feet of DNA strands for a total of about 3 billion miles of DNA inside you. Genetic disorders can be grouped into three main categories: single gene disorders, chromosomes disorders, and multifactorial disorders. A single gene disorders that caused by defect in one particular gene, often with simple and predictable inheritance patterns.
Chromosomal disorders. Chromosomal disorder, distinct structures made up of DNA and protein, are located in the nucleus of each cell. Because chromosomes are the carriers of the genetic material, abnormalities in chromosomes numbers or structure can result in disease. Abnormalities in chromosomes typically occur due to problem with cell division.
The multifactorial disorders or complex diseases. Disorders caused by changes in multiple genes, often in a complex interaction with environmental and lifestyle factors, such as diet or cigarette smoking. Some examples of single gene disorders: adenosine deaminase deficiency, cystic fibrosis, galactosemia, maple syrup urine disease, and the sickle cell disease. One of the single gene disease disorder is sickle cell disease. The term sickle cell disease describe a number of the inherited red blood cell disorders. People with SCD have abnormal hemoglobin, called hemoglobin S or sickle hemoglobin, in their red blood cells. Causes of sickle disease. Abnormal hemoglobin, called hemoglobin S, causes sickle diseases. The problem in hemoglobin S is caused by a small defect in the gene that directs the production of the beta-globin part of hemoglobin. This small defect in the beta-globin gene causes a problem in the beta-globin part of the hemoglobin, changing the way the hemoglobin works. How is sickle disease inherited? When the hemoglobin S is inherited from only one parent and the normal hemoglobin gene is inherited from the other, a person will have sickle cell trait. People with sickle cell trait are generally healthy. Only rarely people with sickle cell trait have complications similar to those seen in the people with SCD, but people with sickle cell trait are carriers of the defective hemoglobin S gene, so they can pass it on the way they have a example of an inheritance pattern. The image show how sickle hemoglobin gene are inherited. A person inherits two hemoglobin gene, one from each parent. A normal gene will make normal hemoglobin. A sickle hemoglobin gene will make abnormal hemoglobin. In the image, each parent has one hemoglobin. A gene and one hemoglobin S gene each of their children has. In case 1, 25% chance of inheriting two normal genes. In this case, the child does not have sickle cell trait or disease. In case 2 and 3, 50% chance of inheriting one hemoglobin A gene and one hemoglobin S gene. This child has sickle cell trait. 25% chance of inheriting two hemoglobin S genes. This children has sickle cell disease in case 4. These are the examples of chromosomal abnormalities. In this disorder, entire chromosomes or large segments of them are missing, duplicated, or otherwise altered. The Down syndrome, 47XYY or the Klinefelter syndrome, Turner syndrome, Williams syndrome. One of the example of the chromosomal disorders is the Klinefelter syndrome or the XXY. The Klinefelter syndrome is a genetic condition caused when someone has two X chromosomes and one Y chromosomes. Males normally have an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, and female normally have two X chromosomes. How do people get Klinefelter syndrome? Klinefelter syndrome is usually caused by what is called non-disjunction. Non-disjunction happens when a pair of sex chromosomes fails to separate during egg formation. When an egg with an extra X chromosomes join with a normal sperm, the resulting embryo will end up the three sex chromosomes instead of normal two. As the baby develops, the extra chromosomes is then copied in every cell. Example of the multifactorial inheritance include heart disease, high blood, Alzheimer's disease, arthritis, diabetes, cancers, and obesity. Now, let's talk about the common factorial disorders in the Philippines. The Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a slowly progressive disease of the brain that is characterized by impairment of memory and eventually by the disturbance of reasoning, planning, language, and perception. Many scientists believe that Alzheimer's disease results from an increase in the production or accumulation of specific protein in the brain that leads to the nerve death. Causes of Alzheimer's disease. Like all types of dementia, Alzheimer's disease is caused by brain cell death. It is undergo a neurodegenerative disease, which means there is progressive brain cell death that happens over a course of time. The total brain size shrink with Alzheimer's. The tissue has progressively fewer nerve cell and connections. While they cannot be seen or tested in the living brain affected by Alzheimer's disease, post-term autopsy will always show tiny inclusions in the nerve cell tissue called plaques and tangles. And plaques are found between the dying cells in the brain from the buildup of a protein called beta amyloid, and the tangles are within the brain neurons from a disintegration of another protein called tau.